due to the way we're indexing and doing weird stuff. We're not really worried about tiling right now. So these aren't really pretty at the corners, but what the hell. And inside we get dirt, which is because we're indexing a little bit wrong on the material right now. That's something we're going to fix up in a moment. Because we need to do a mapping from the material to the actual texture we're going to use. But before that, one thing I do want to do is, you'll notice that if I go inside an object, we're actually also rendering the back sides of things. So we're actually rendering everything that's facing away from us as well, which is not really effective or efficient. So we're just going to do a little change that will allow us to stop doing that, so that we only render one side of our faces. So what we do is we want to do face culling, and we want to do this pretty much globally, so it's something we're just going to set up more or less immediately when we set up our renderer. So in our GLES renderer here, we do a little bit of setup in the beginning. We enable depth testing and set our depth function to less. What we also want to do is we want to set GL enable GL call face. And what we want to do is we want to GL and call face. I want to call the back face. GL back. And there's one more thing I have to call to set this up, which is the direction, which I cannot remember how it works. So call face, here we go. So what I can do is I can say, do I want, which is the front face? Is it the one counterclockwise or clockwise? And I vaguely remember that the usual way to do this is to say GL front face is the counterclockwise face. So we're going to do that, and then we're probably going to be missing something because we probably need to change the direction some of our faces are rendered to get this right. So we're going to quickly compile this and try and reload. And you'll see we've got about half of them right. So the reason this is working is because we're essentially, let's think about this for a moment. And also see the sky box is now rendered wrong. So what's going on here is that we're rendering, we start with, actually we've got this, I'm going to try and just switch over. No, can't really do it without. So what's happening here is that we are, for example, for the Y up face, which is the one or Y positive, which is the one we're looking at here, we start with X plus 1, so that's sort of the X negative side, which will be the side out here. And then we have the Y positive, which is of course this, and then we have Z negative. Z negative is away, so we're starting with drawing this corner. Then we move to the X positive side over here, and then we move to the X, or then we move down here, and you can see this direction here is clockwise, so it's not a front face. So what we want to do is we want to switch this and this vertex so that we're doing this in a counterclockwise direction. So the way to do that is simply to take this vertex and flip their order. So if we do that, relink. Hello Reagan, how you doing? We can quickly switch over and refresh. So now the top face should be working. Bottom face. So Y negative here. You can sort of see it's the opposite problem we have here. In this case, we're starting with the X. Let's see, we start with, on the negative Y face, we start with the negative X, which is this corner here. Then we move on to the positive X, which is over here. And then we move to positive Z, which is here, which is in this case counterclockwise, so it renders. For the other face, we're starting again with this corner, then we're moving up here, and then up to this corner, and this direction is clockwise, so we want that to be counterclockwise. So here it's the second triangle we have to rotate. So we're going to go into the code, we're going to take these two and swap, and that should get the bottom face working as well. Let's see if we've got bottom faces working as well. Bottom faces are working as well. Great. So now it's just a matter of switching stuff around until we've got everything running on the right directions. And in theory, all the positive faces and all the negative faces should be the same. So for the positive face, it was the first triangle we needed to move, and for the negative, it was the second triangle we needed to change. So why we've done Z positive, we changed the first triangle, and Z negative, we changed the second triangle. At least that's the theory. Let's see if I've got it right. All right, theory and theory, it's my guess. So let's quickly reload here. Nope, got that wrong. So actually, let's see, what did I get anything correct? Nope, doesn't really look like I got anything of that correct. So we're just going to quickly undo all of that stuff. And with that undone, so for positive, we need to change the second triangle. Need to verify that I did that right. And for negative, we need to change the first triangle, and same thing down here. Positive, second triangle. Negative, first triangle. There we go. Compile that. I'm also, just before we start this up again, gonna kill off this debug information again because that's annoying. Now that stuff works, we don't need to debug, at least until next time stuff stops working. So we're gonna refresh that. And we have all the sides working, hopefully. Yeah, that looks about right. And if we go inside, it disappears because we're no longer rendering back faces. You can sort of, if you're inside, look out onto the terrain from there. Great, so that's a good start. Skybox needs to be corrected as well. Now, the skybox is the opposite way around. So here we have vertex buffers and then the actual index buffer. So what we need to do is we need to switch around the index buffer, and typically by swapping either these two numbers or these two. And which ones it is depends on the direction. Now, in this case, we want front facing towards us. So the first one here is at 1, 1, 1. And then it becomes 1, 1, 0 on Z. So Z is towards us, away from us. So this is in front of us. This is behind us. And then we move to Y1. So Y is up, down. So this would be the right-hand side of our wonderful little box here. So on our right-hand side, we are moving from behind us to in front of us and down, which is counterclockwise. So that's good. Then we're moving from in front of us, we're moving down again, diagonally down, and then we are going to move let's see. Yeah, in front of us, we move behind us and down, and then we move forward from here, which is clockwise. So what we want to do is we want to swap these two around. So that should give us one functioning face on the skybox. At least that's the theory. So yeah, the right side here should work, and it does, which is wonderful. So that just leaves the rest of it. Now the wonderful thing here is that there's a little bit of an asymmetry. So we had these two were the right side, so these two are the left side, and they're doing the same thing in the same order up here. So that means that because we want the opposite sides, this one is clockwise and this one's counterclockwise, which means we want to change the first one of these. So this is going to be 5 and 6. Or 6 and 5 in that direction. So that should get the left face also working. We'll just quickly try that out. So reload. And we have the left face working again. So far so good. Yes, I can get to, I was just wondering if I could get to a point where I could validate whether or not the bottom face was working, because that's going to be interesting. Anyways, we have left and right working. So next one in this order is here. It is 0, 1, 4. So that means we're using these two and this one. So again, we are starting to the right. So all of these have the same y. So we're looking at the y positive plane, which is up. So this is going to be the one that's above us. So we're starting behind us to our right. Then we're moving in front of us to the right. And then we're moving to the left behind us. That would be counterclockwise. So that means the next one here, 1, 4, 5, it's still here we're starting. So in front of us to the right. Then it's behind us to to the left. So in front of us to our right, behind us to the left, and then we're going to the left in front of us, which is clockwise. So that means that this one gets changed to being 4, 1. And then this is 2, 3, 6, and 3, 6, 7 will be the one below us, which we want the opposite way around. So we're going to switch 3 and 6 here. We run that. Let's try and switch over, refresh. So hopefully the top works. The top does not work, meaning we got that wrong, which means I expect that the bottom does not work either. Nope, managed to get that all wrong. So again, this was the top. So, yeah, these two were the top. We got that wrong. So that means this needs to be 4, 1, and 1, 4. So that means this is the bottom. We can swap these around. So it's 3, 6, and 6, 3. So there's sort of a pattern emerging here in the middle saying 1, 1, 6, 6, 4, 4, 3, 3. That will possibly break in the next one. I don't know. I don't know if that's a pattern that's supposed to be there. But let's check if we got top and bottom working. So linking, and we're done linking. Let's look up. That looks fine. Look down. That looks fine. So we have front and behind not working right now. Let's get that running. Going to try and see if we can reason again, because that's always good. So 0, 2, 4, and 2, 4, 6. So that's, again, so we're going to be looking forward. So this is the back side, actually. So that's always interesting when it's the back side. Actually, probably better to start with the front side, because that will be easier to reason about, because then you're sort of looking directly at it. So we start with 1, 3, 5. So that's 1, 3, and 5. So what's going on here? We start at... negative is in front. Good. So we start with 1, 1. So that is up in the right corner. Then we have 1, 0, so that's down right. And then we have -1 and 1, so that is top left, which is clockwise and is the one that's missing here. So that means it's the first one down here we need to switch around, so it becomes 5, 3, which tells us that this one should have the opposite one switched, which is 4, 2, which means we get this lovely arrangement with 1, 1, 2, 6, 6, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 5, 5. That's probably purpose. So let's try and compile this and see if that works. Link. And we've filled it. Let's switch over. Well, the front one seems to be good. Back one also seems to be working. So far so good. Now, what would be nice to do is then getting the textures mapped correctly. Because we get a material into the shaders, and right now we're just mapping that directly over to the texture, which is technically not what we want to do. So let's take a look at that. Now we're going to be looking at textures, which is always fun. And what we're going to do is we are going to work in the We're going to look at the vertex shader because we can do this per vertex, which will make this a lot easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and do a little bit of work with the material here, or a little bit of casing on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our material, our output to default to 0. So if nothing else stone, this should never happen, but just in case. Then, if our input material is, and then we can take a look at what our materials are right now. Where did I store that information? In fact, we might want to go so far as to make an enumeration of this, so that, no, an enumeration would make this a little bit more tricky right now, actually. So what we want to do is we want to look here. So we have 1 and 2, and 1 is supposed to be stone and 2 is supposed to be dirt. So if our material is 1, then the texture that we want to output is 0. Else, if our material is 2, so this is dirt, then what we're going to do, I want it as if, I want it like that. Then we're going to take a little look at the internal. We're going to look at our varying normal. Is the y coordinate of our normal greater than, say, 1/2? Then in that case, we're facing upwards. So we want to use the grass texture, which is 2. Otherwise, we want to use the dirt texture, which is 1. Not the normal, varying material. So to do this, as usual, we need to clean and recompile this. Get it packed with the new vertex shader. Gonna switch over and try and reload that. So that did not go particularly well. So do we have any? Okay, interesting stuff. Cannot convert from const int to flat out high p uint. Wrong operand, no operation equals that takes a left and of type high and a right of constant, or there is no acceptable conversion. Okay. So Varying material is an unsigned, so we might have to put a U behind here, would be my guess, to signify that these are unsigned and that we can compare them with other unsigned. So we're just going to try that out. Recompile. Oh yeah, we need to completely clean this and recompile. So get that done. Linking, and switch to the browser and refresh. There we go. So that's working wonderfully poorly. Everything is still very much grass. What happens if we just dive in here? That's still dirt. Oh, I am apparently a little bit of an idiot today. So for this to work, I kind of need, there we go. For this to work, I kind of need to remove that line. Let's try that again. Building a lot, and we're done. Switch over here, refresh. So we now have our wonderful dirt texture on the side here. Now I want to play a little bit with the terrain generation so that we hopefully get, because if I look inside here, we can see we have stone on the inside, at least against our chunk borders. So what I kind of want to do is I want to make it possible that we excavate a little bit into the ground every once in a while so that we can expose some of that stone. So we're going to take a look at our terrain generation, which is in the chunk code generate here. So right now we're going for generation here. We take a look at our size. We have our height is simplex thing here. So we generate sort of a base height map, and then if we're below that base height map, we're always set, and otherwise we take a sort of a cutoff, and then we do a little bit of addition on top of that using another simplex noise here, which is in 3 dimensions, whereas this thing is in 2 dimensions. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to also use this simplex to cut out of the ground in addition to actually adding to the ground. So what we are going to do is that we are simply going to have a little bit of fun here instead of only looking. So let's see what we're doing here. We have a height here. So from that over down here, we're calculating a cutoff based on the height. So the further away we are from the height here, the closer or the more likely we are to cut off. Because we're looking at our height, we subtract, or we're looking at the height of the cell we're generating, then we look at the height of the height map at this point, and then we multiply it by 0.1 just to have something. So the more above the height map we are here, the higher our cutoff becomes, and that means that it's only when our noise is greater than our cutoff, and noise is between 0 and 1 as far as I remember. So that's no problem. Then we set it as dirt, otherwise we set it as air. So what we want to do here, the way I see it, is rather than check if the Y is of our height, we're just always going to look at our noise. So let's just start by taking a look at how that looks before we go any further. So we compile, link it, and let's see how that looks. Definitely cutting out a little bit more. Looks very chaotic. I kind of like it. We're getting some really, really neat little cave entrances and stuff. and a lot of floating blocks, but we'll possibly take a look at that at some point. Very, very chaotic. So what we want to do now is we want to do a little thing. We don't just automatically set dirt. What we want to do is we want to grab this condition. So we're going to look at our base height map and determine whether we're going to be stone or not. So if we're sort of cutting into the terrain by a large amount, we're going to be stone. Otherwise, we're going to be dirt here. And of course, once we get below a certain height, it's just always going to be stone. So let's link that and switch over. So now we're also getting some stone exposed. Really love it when we're generating these sort of arches. I think we should move the stone down a little bit further. We're getting too much of it, in my opinion, at this time. So let's try and move the stone down a little bit. So that's pretty simple. We just modify this number here, and we can move it down. There we go. Switch over and refresh. Now it's a lot rarer that you get stone sort of peeking out, but it does happen. Very nice. I'm really happy with this.